Welcome to this week's edition of Beyond 3D. Matt and Clint here, hoping that you've had a fantastic week. And what we're going to do is get right into what we consider to be one of the nicest interviews we've ever done with a person. This person was born back in 1940 in the Himalayas. At the exact second the first bombs fell on London. She is a seer. She is into esoteric studies. She has done a myriad of work, and we would like to welcome her to Beyond 3D, and you will enjoy this interview immensely. So let's get right into it with Diana Cooper.
Beyond 3D.
First of all, Diana Cooper, welcome to Beyond 3D. It's an absolute pleasure to be able to spend a little bit of time with you and discuss the work you've been doing of late, as well as go back and discuss a few of the books you had written in the past. We here in Australia have heard a lot about you through different channels, and we appreciate the time you've taken to be able to speak to us and to our audience. So welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. It's lovely to be here.
Well, I would like to start by just giving you the background of why we wanted you on this show. An extremely good friend of mine, who is a medium, recommended your book, The Keys to the Universe, to me for some work that we were doing. A lot of us down here, we're doing a lot of spiritual work and trying to help as many people as we can with healing modalities. And this person told me about you and the book that you wrote with Kathy Croswell. And what I found was, as soon as I ordered the book online, what happened was very interesting. The energies or the entities out there started having a little bit of fun with me and with my wife as well, because we do healing work together. And the book finally did arrive, but if you looked at the envelope that it arrived in, it was almost as if, it had gone through the ringer a few times. And I looked at it and I was like, oh my goodness. And I knew there was a CD along with it, and I figured that was the end of it. I didn't have to worry about it. I just wanted the book to read. But in spite of the fact that the envelope looked like it had been all around Robin Hood's barn and then some, the book in and of itself was ripped at the binding, which is no problem. The CD was in pristine condition, so I was extremely pleased that that information had gotten through. Now, I opened the book and I read the foreword, and I started to look at what the book was about, and it really intrigued me. So I said to myself, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, on a nightly basis, look at one of the keys and do a bit of a meditation and a practice on it to see what would happen. I stopped at about the third one because we started noticing a lot of things going on around us. And it really made me sit up and take notice about the fact that when a person decides they're going to start looking at information that can truly help people, there are certain entities out there that might not like that too much.
Absolutely.
And it was just a fascinating thing, to the point where my wife said, let's put this down for a little bit and see what happens, because we had to clear a few different things. And so that's what we did. So that's the introduction as far as this book, Keys to the Universe, is concerned for me. But it really did strike some chords within me and helped me a bit as far as what I needed to do spiritually to help other people and to help, at least in this part of the universe, start cleaning things up. So if you could just give us a little bit of a background to the Keys of the Universe. And first of all, let's start there. How about a little background about yourself and how this work came to you? That would be a really good place to start.
Oh, it's a very long story, but my story started many, many years ago when I was in deep despair. I was getting divorced. I couldn't see a future. I had no spiritual or religious background. I knew nothing about anything. But I still threw myself into a chair and said, well, if there is anything out there, show me. And an angel came in. I was in no doubt whatsoever that this golden being, 6 foot tall, that stood in front of me was an angel.
Diana, welcome. I didn't get a chance to say hello before. How are you?
I'm fine.
Great.
So what I'm going to do, your story again, you were talking about the fact that, no belief in a supreme being per se, a lot of things going on, but when you said the word show me, you were shown.
That's right.
And that is extremely pertinent and important. Now, after that was shown to you, let's have another one. How long did it take you to finally accept the fact that what was shown to you was real, or what we would call was a real experience for you? Did it take some
Well, I
time?
never doubted it was a real experience because I had said, you've got 1 hour. And literally the angel took me around the universe, showed me all sorts of things about my future, told me I was to be a spiritual teacher, which was a bit of a shock, and brought me back exactly 1 hour later. So I knew it was important. And I still worried and stressed and got into a mess. But from that moment, I knew that there was something kind of guiding me. And I trained to be a hypnotherapist, and I started to be aware of the angels and guides around me. But they came back 10 years later, and this time they told me to write a book about the angels, which I did. And so from that moment, I have worked with the angels, talked to them constantly, whether I can see them or not, because I don't think it's important to see them. The proof of their presence is around us all the time. The way they make things happen, introduce us to the right people at the right time, open new doors for us. That's the angel.
Well, I can agree with that, and that's based on my experiences as well. And what I guess the main thing for me was, as I was reading Keys to the Universe, there was a point in time where, when we started meditating, there was a bit of faith involved. Then all of a sudden experiences started happening, and the faith almost dropped away. It was just experience, and it was something that you knew within your heart and within your head was true. After that point, it was a matter of, okay, now I need to start to look at this from almost a mathematical or a scientific manner, or so to speak, and I wanted to have techniques or tools that would allow for myself and other people doing spiritual modalities to be able to repeat, almost like the scientific method. If it's not repeatable, a lot of people are going to basically dismiss it. We wanted to have a series of protocols that we could repeat on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, what have you, that would allow us to access certain frequencies, and those frequencies we could use for healing and modalities along those lines. So I guess a lot of people in the spiritual realms are searching for not just experience, but for repeatable experiences. Now, as you were taken on a tour around the universe, and over this period of an hour, I will ask this question. During that time, if you can remember, what was the most, I guess, profound thing about the universe that you were shown?
I was taken into the light, and whatever happened to me, they tried all sorts of different things, like dropping me from a mountain, of strange things, strapping me into a rocket and sending me up. I always ended up in light. So there was only light.
So in other words,
for me personally, the most important thing was when we flew over this hall full of people covered in rainbow auras, and I said to my angel, am I down there? And the angel said, no, you're not in the audience, you're on the platform, you're to be a spiritual speaker. And I knew then that I had a lot of work to do on myself.
now either angel, your guide, as they were showing you these situations, as they were giving you these experiences, was there a point in time where you recognized that this experience was within you, not just outside of you?
I don't think I was in any sort of left brain state. I was just in the experience. So I certainly wasn't asking that sort of question.
Okay.
And frankly, I think that internal and external are the same. You know, we see angels and archangels outside us, but also they are within us. When Source originally sent out the monads, each monad had archangel energy in it and with it. And then as they came down into soul, each soul took a little bit of that. As we then, as personalities, move into the fifth dimension, that archangel and angel energy within us starts to be revealed. So we then know that the angels are within us and without us.
Question I'd like to ask is, at the moment, you've gone through different experiences that have grown you as a person. Would you agree?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you've discovered, I'd also imagine, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that with these experiences, with this outward growth that you're enjoying and experiencing is also becoming a giving component to that as well, because as you're experiencing, you also your cup is therefore also overflowing, and you'd be naturally giving at the same time.
Oh, absolutely right.
So my question now that I led along to that was, as you're learning these things and as your scope is broadening, can you start seeing more of the bigger picture that you now feel like you've got to take on these extra lessons that you now want to share, but as you're learning more and more, it's getting more and more information that's coming your way?
Yes, it's not just information, it's knowing as well. That's basically enlightenment, seeing a higher and wider picture of everything. And I think that when people really know that they are one with Source, then they see that as the angels see, you see through angelic eyes. Now that means that you see the higher perspective on every situation and on every person. I had an extraordinary experience many years ago, and it's taken a long time for it really, really to percolate into me. My mother and I didn't really get on very well. She was very down-putting about everything. And one day I was lying in bed and I saw this light gathering in the corner of the room. And then my mother's face appeared, but not the mother I knew, a beautiful, shining being pouring absolute, total love into me. I knew that this was my mother's higher self, and that was her true self. That was the real person. And all this downput was her ego, and all the way I took it was my ego. And the bits of us that were in confrontation were just two egos having a go at each other. But the real, true relationship between us was this extraordinary love that I had been shown that night. And I see this more and more in situations that are happening.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that.
Well, I think you can see it in all political situations, and you try and look beyond the fighting of the ego, the fear of the ego that stops us embracing others and having peace, and look at the true picture. The more people that look at the real peace, the real wonder, the more quickly we'll achieve it on the planet.
That's a very valid point. So therefore, based on what I've just heard, when was the Keys to the Universe written?
Well, this was written before 2012, so before the cosmic moment. And just one extraordinary evening, I'd met this lady at a party, and we got on together, and we said, let's get together to meditate. And when we sat down to meditate, the candle changed, the room went still, and we just had this extraordinary experience of an energy beyond anything we'd ever experienced coming in. And we were told to write this book together because it was so important. It contained literally the keys to the universe, and an understanding of them changes everybody's entire perspective.
Well, it's an interesting scenario, because let me ask you this question, because I think it's pertinent. Being that was, say, 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. Now, looking back on it, did that book for you act as a catalyst and propel you to another level, the two of you? And if so, how do you now feel about what was written then? Is that a jumping off point or a foundational situation that people can now build on?
I think it is just another step on the journey, but a very, very important step. And that it just brings you to a higher state of enlightenment and understanding.
Yeah. It's interesting because when I read information like this, there are certain parts of it that will resonate. But what tends to happen for people is a lot of people get hung up, so to speak, on the ceremonies of it all. And they use a lot of that information and almost as a crutch. And to me, when I read things like the work you've written here, which is fantastic, it should be more like a catalyst, and a catalyst propels you forward But once you have that catalyst and it has served its purpose, you should be able to move on from there. That's why I was asking if it was a foundational point. Do you think it was a foundational point for people? An analogy would be a lot of people are into astrology. But I believe, you can say yes or no to this, you as a spiritual being can outgrow your chart.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just the same as saying that we all come in with a genetic program, but that's a choice. The thoughts, the emotions, everything that you do and feel affects your DNA and affects what happens to you in your life. But that's just what you choose to come in with as a starting point to your challenge. Just the same as an astrological chart is.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And so I think the difference between this book is that each key has a sound vibration. And, of course, every sentient being has a sound vibration. And every tree is singing a harmony out. Lady Gaia herself is singing out a harmony. So when you start working with the keys, you can listen to the CD, you hear the vibrations of the sound. And when they all come in together, then you've got a huge planetary harmony being sounded. And this literally changes you at a cellular level. And I think that with the left brain information in the book, the right brain meditation, and the sound, this really does propel people forward on their journey.
Beyond 333D.
Diana, can I ask you a question in regards to, actually, your opinion, more importantly? I saw something the other day in regards to mainstream science has said that they've discovered that trees that interlock at the root level in a forest, where you have a giant tree that interlocks with lower canopy trees, and they form this giant union of a bank of information where they pass carbon in between each other. They've discovered that orbs center around these trees when they are formed in this type of tight-knit community, and they can be photographed quite regularly in this formation. Have you heard of anything about that in similar to you talking about Gaia as a planet?
Well, trees are sentient beings. They are keepers of local knowledge and wisdom, and great forests hold huge amounts of cosmic wisdom, which is stored there, ready until we're ready for them. But yes, every single tree is sending out an energy. For example, if you have beech trees, they send out an energy that helps you with forgiveness. Fir trees raise your frequency to the fifth dimension if you're ready for it. So if you are with one of those trees, it is impacting on your consciousness and helping you.
In looking at your information in the book, I said to you earlier, I wanted to use the keys to the universe as an introduction to you. What is very important is what's going on now and what's the latest information that is out there. So Clint and I, we have kids. We both would love to talk to you about the children's books that you've done and the work you're doing with children. We would love to be able for you to just literally let our audience know everything that's going on in your universe insofar as your websites, everything that you're doing, whether it's with recorded sound and CDs. I love the fact that in the Keys to the Universe, it came with a CD, and that CD, it's another way of connecting with people. I mean, the written word really can open up somebody's imagination, in my opinion, because I've written books as well. But what tends to happen is, I think, that when you add the sound, when you add vibration, which is what this whole universe is about, it really does have a dramatic effect on people. And so I really love the way that you guys did that, and with each key there is a tone, almost like with the chakras, each chakra has a tone. So I think that's absolutely...
I have to say, it wasn't we who did it was the angels who gave us the information and told us to do it.
Well, I appreciate the angels coming through you and letting a lot of people out there get that tonality into their lives, because it actually does help. It really helps a lot.
The sounds open you up energetically to access the specific information in the code.
It's absolutely fascinating as far as I'm concerned. So, I was looking through this, and I wanted to peer into it. What I think is very important, because I've heard a lot of people speak of it, is one of the keys in the book, and it would be, for me, key number 20, which is Mount Shasta in California.
Ah, yes, Mount Shasta, the most fabulous place.
And my wife has been there when she used to do camps over in the States, and I lived in California for 9 years. And if you could, as you said, Mount Shasta, and that says a lot to me. But for our audience, when the comes out, when someone states that, could you just give a little bit more as to how that affected you and the information that was channeled through you guys to share with the public out there?
Well, Mount Shasta is the most beautiful place, and Archangel Gabriel is there. You can literally feel his energy if you're in the place, and of course that comes through you. But it's also connected to the Pleiades. It's a great, huge, enormous portal, and so beings from the Pleiades come through there, bringing their healing energy, because there is a huge blue cosmic rose with 33 petals, the number of light consciousness, between Source and the Pleiades. And that acts as a filter, bringing down pure Source healing and stepping it down to a level that the beings on the Pleiades can access. They then bring that light healing down to us on Earth. And they bring it through Mount Shasta. And the color is the most glorious blue white, and when you connect with it, there's also a picture of a being in the book showing you the exact color vibration, enabling you to feel the energy and access it more easily.
I'm looking through the book right now. I wanted to just connect again with the energy of the photo.
Diana,
and this was the one that Clint and I were looking at in the other studio, because the blue in this photo, the orb in and of itself, it's on page 86, guys, of the book, The Keys to the Universe. If you look at that, it is just stellar. It's spectacular. The depth of the color.
Sorry, Diana. I have a question about that picture, and it's describing it. It's like a iridescent emerald-like kind of blue. It's just magical indigo thing. It's just kind of. And what's the age of that image?
What's the age of it? Oh, I don't know. It was sent to us. Before this, we wrote some books about orbs, and so we were sent and continue to be sent thousands of orbs. And this one, of course, was leapt out. It was so gorgeous. It was sent to us probably in about 2009 or 10.
2009 or 10. So I'm thinking, Matt, Diana, is it a digital image or is it one that had a negative?
No, it's a digital.
It's digital, okay. That's cool.
Yeah, it's much easier for the orbs to impress themselves on the digital camera.
Yep.
Just as it's much easier for them to impress themselves when the conditions are slightly damp, because of the cosmic love flows through water. So it's easier for the orbs to come in when there is water around.
That's just
And
an
in a
absolutely
place like Mount
spectacular.
Shasta, you would receive many, many orbs. Angels go there, take the energy, and then take it back to whoever they're working with.
No, that is
So if
absolutely
it's a very
spectacular.
high frequency area, or a waterfall, for example, there's always loads and loads of water around waterfalls. And that's because if somebody's sick, for instance, quite unknown to them, their guardian angel will go to that waterfall, collect that high frequency energy, bring it back to the sick person to help them. The angels are helping us all the time, all sorts of ways.
It's just a matter of opening yourself up to recognize the fact that the help is there.
The help is there whether we realize it.
I think Dr. Stephen Greer was doing some work on orbs at Mount Shasta recently too. I think back in 2012 that he was doing that.
Right. Well, we wrote 2 books on orbs, Enlightenment through Orbs and Descent through Orbs. And we were inundated with the most fascinating.
Well, actually, no, I don't think it was about 2008, to correct myself. It was a long time ago. So orbs aren't new. They've been around for a long time. Just it's become more easier to capture them in a digital form.
Orbs have always been there because
Yeah.
orbs are the six-dimensional light bodies of the angels, and they take that form so that they can connect with us more easily, and they bring their vibrations down to that level so that we can feel them. But since digital cameras come in, and remember the angels pressed on the technologists who were working on the cameras, that was the right thing for them to use, so that could capture the orb images. And so the angels have been working on this throughout.
So it's almost like a slow reveal map of helping people to awaken and see what's around them.
Well, everywhere around the world, the sickness has gone on. The angels always say, look back to see how far you've come, rather than keep looking forward to see what you've got to go through. And that's absolutely true. We have come so far in the last few years. Between 2012 and 2032, as you know, this is the most important period of history in the entire universe, because Earth is doing the double-dimensional shift from the third to the fifth dimension. We have to be ready for the new golden age starting in 2032. So we have a massive clearance to do and opening up to new energies. This is so spectacular, so awesome, that beings from all over the universe are either coming here to help or watch what is going on. But we've never had a spiritual opportunity for growth like this one that there is now.
Diana, what do you think would happen, or what do you think is prevalent or could possibly happen in a scenario when these beings do start presenting themselves more and more, and people start having more and more positive experiences, where it becomes more common to talk about openly? But then again, there's those people, that the non-believers, the people that either won't have those experiences or won't be subjected to those experiences, or will totally take them on board and not be able to process them. How do you think that society is going to cope when that occurs?
I think that the unfoldment will be fairly natural and easy. After all, the orbs have been coming into people's photos. If they're not ready to see them, they can just look on the photograph. Oh, how strange that I've got that coloured sort of ball in my photo.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they just ignore it. But more and more people are waking up because of these unusual things. There were some clouds that appeared over Ireland, and they were the most incredible, luminous colours. That was because the archangels were sending their light down through them. Now, this was not commented on in the press, but they didn't realise the cause of it. Unconsciously, that knowing is filtering through. I think people are going to start changing dramatically because the dragons are now pouring in. Many, many people who aren't connected with angels are connected with dragons. They are of the angelic kingdom. Many children are talking about the connection with unicorns, also of the angelic kingdom. And they are drawing their parents' attention to the unicorn. They're asking for them on their school bags, on their exercise books. There are pictures of unicorns everywhere because people are ready.
Well, it's really interesting because we have kids that are the age, well, between Clint, how old are you? Look, your youngest daughter is how old?
My youngest princess
Yes.
is...
what is this, February? So she's about to turn 4 in 3 weeks.
And my daughter is 12. And it's interesting insofar as we've tried to allow these children to grow up with in an open situation where we will try our best to explain everything as we see it from a spiritual standpoint. What I'm noticing here in Australia is the girls, and I think this is in a lot of spiritual disciplines, it's the girls are more willing to embrace this, but we're lucky here insofar as a very good friend of our family, there's a young man who's about 12 years old. And I was talking to him about 2 weeks ago, and he literally went up to northern Victoria. They went on a trip, and he came back, and this young man sees orbs constantly. He's very, very into it. His faculties are opened, and he brings back these photos and he shows them to me. And for the first time, I've seen many photos of orbs. He brought one back, and this showed, literally, he was in a barn, and it was quite hard to see the barn with all of the orbs that were just everywhere in the surrounding. It was absolutely amazing. I agree with you. The children today are open to a lot more things than even society will care to admit. The way that they listen, the way that technology, and they've embraced technology, they don't know any different. So if digital photography can bring forward a lot more of these images, these kids embrace this. They know all about this, and they really accept it for what it is. It's absolutely amazing to me. And what I've seen on your website and in the work you're doing, you do a lot of work with kids around the children. And so I'd like to take this discussion in that vein now. You have written quite a number of works out there, and so I wanted you, because I was looking on the website, and I wanted you to just talk a bit about what you're doing with the children right now.
Okay. I've written 5 children's books. 4 of them are about a little girl, because I have a granddaughter who finds life quite difficult. And I was asked how could I help her? And they brought down this idea of a children's book about this little girl who finds life difficult. And the characters in the book are teaching her how to deal with all life's problems. She's given a kitten, and the kitten can communicate with her and becomes her guide, and shows her how to deal with everything. But also introduces her to the invisible realm, and they learn that children are powerful. Children can make a difference, and they work with the elementals. And in one book they work with mermaids, in one with the unicorns, and one with the fairies, and the angels, to make a difference to society. And they learn that children can do these things, and have all this help, and that all these beings are around them, working with them. And so I'm trying to get them into television at the moment, with all the characters we've done, made a promo song. And I think that if children could take that on board, that would really help them. Because so many children are aware, as you have just said, but they can't talk about it to their parents. And I've also written a boys' book called Sin's Space Adventures for my grandson Sin, because as you said right today, the boys aren't so much into the ancient fairies, but they are aware of the other realms. And this is adventures they have to face, overcoming challenges, and bringing back some of the new technology that's going to happen in the future, creating problems and chaos by bringing things back before we're ready for them. But that's the story of the book. Make it funny, yeah. So I think that children are ready for these things.
Beyond 3 D.
I was just thinking that coming from an educational point of view, I've watched the changes in the education system have gone from more hands-on, being mechanical and working with a trade, to being more creative and more of an appreciation for the arts. Now, that, in retrospect, complementing what you were just talking about in children discovering themselves and discovering what's around them and being more self-aware of their environment and in tune with these changes that are happening. These are the kids that are growing up that are now, because art is more appreciated in society, these are the children that are growing up and developing these new technologies that you're talking about, and that are being in tune with what their guides are talking through to them. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree.
Awesome. I just wanted to...
bringing it all in for us. The new children coming in have got very different energies. And this is why we're having problems, because we don't understand the new children. They're coming in with different mindsets, different understanding, their brains are configured differently, so that they can bring in the new spiritual technology of the future.
We had the privilege... early last year, we had the privilege of talking to Robert Sullivan. Matt?
Ah, yes. Robert wrote books on the movies, for lack of a better term. He's
Yes.
a Freemason, and he wrote, what he did was he decided he would go back and talk about books on the movies. And what's it called? Cinema Symbolism
Yes,
was the
mate.
name of the book.
Yes, and the Book of Enoch.
And the Book of Enoch. And he explained a lot of the meanings behind a lot of the movies that were out there.
Yeah, for example, the reason that that Titanic had such an impact was it was bringing up memories of the fall of Atlantis. When Atlantis flooded, and people were going and finding themselves crying and upset for days, and it was bringing up cellular memories from Atlantis. The films are incredibly important.
Now, the reason I brought Robert up, and Robert was an awesome interview, and I highly encourage everyone to go check that out on our podcast through the back archives, Matt, back to last year, early last year. Diana, the reason I brought Robert up is because of that exact reason that Matt was just explaining, and you so eloquently put it, is that he reflects and voices what's hidden in mainstream media and the messages that are there. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with a new show that's sort of come on to the scene. It's called the Shinara Chronicles, and it's all about positive energies in the earth and how spirit guides work through certain characters, how they channel different energies. And it's almost like mainstream media now, as a positive, is starting to reflect the way that life's changing. I highly recommend, if nobody's actually seen this kind of show before, look it up, find a way to see it, because it's almost a reflection of what life could end up being like.
Well, in my book, Discover Atlantis, I talk about how life was in the golden era of Atlantis, how they lived on a daily basis, how they communicated, the way they treated animals, the way they worked in their temples. And we are moving to the same thing and then to a level higher in the new golden age. So we already have a foundation for the way communities are going to be and the way the spiritual technology is coming in again. But we have got to take it up to that much higher frequency, which is very exciting, because we really are brothering the new. And we've already seen how the old paradigm is beginning to collapse. Old big business that is not in alignment with the new and is working on selfish lines. They're all starting to crash and having to look for new ways of doing things. And as soon as that happens, then the new is going to come up and going to flourish. People that are into the biggest car and the biggest house and all that sort of thing, you're going to find it quite tough. But people who are much more interested in spiritual evolution, in the trees, the flowers, cooperation, working together, they're going to find life much happier.
Yep. And especially with big businesses falling apart, like you say, that's happening more and more common.
Yeah, that's my old line of work, was in the finance industry on Wall Street, so I can see, I know exactly what's going on there, and I can see how they are trying. They're holding on by their fingernails at this point, but it's going to switch. There's going to be a major shift, and there's not going to be much they can do about it. And this is what I think we're seeing today. And so, Diana, your opinion on this, all of the things going on in the world right now, the negativities, I honestly think that it's going to backfire on the so-called powers that be. A lot of people noticed that in France, when everything happened in France. The first thing Clint and I heard here was not the negativity of it. We knew it was a negative event that was happening. What we heard was everyone sending positive prayers and blessings to France, to Paris, and to the citizenry. So that was the message that was really coming through. I mean, everybody can see what was negative, but the fact is now we're hearing a lot more. And I think social media helps that a bit. A lot of people are just expressing blessings and prayers for people. And the more people that do that, and the more people that concentrate on any negative aspect and send it positive or white light or good energy, a lot of that stuff is going to start to fade away. It does not have that dramatic effect like it used to have.
So the darkness always serves the light. and the light consumes and devours the darkness. So if you have an event like what happened in Paris, and then millions of people light candles and send in light, ultimately the result is something much, much more beautiful and powerful.
So now I'm looking at your website here, and I'm just amazed at all the information that you have available for folks. The children's books, I think, are extremely important. Clint and I were looking at that going, this is something that we have to, bring into the schools more. I used to do this in my daughter's school. She just got into high school now. I used to go and I did a meditation class for the kids.
Fantastic.
And the
Really
teachers love it. They embraced it. That's a Catholic school, but the kids embraced it. And what it did, you notice the difference. The kids come off the playground. They're hyper and everything like that. You do a quick 5 to 10 minute meditation. The room is calm. Everyone's ready. The teacher gets the attention of the kids again, and you can go forward. And it's a pleasure to be able to do things like that.
Yeah.
And what I see from your website is you are putting information out there that really can help people in many different walks of life. I mean, you're dealing with the kids. I mean, I'm looking at the books and the information you have. Well, let's see. There's the evolution of spirituality and what they talk about. We talk about the different kingdoms. And so you have the mineral kingdom, you have the vegetable kingdom, you have the plant kingdom, you have the animal kingdom, you have the humanity. You've done a lot of writing and you've done a lot of research in the area, especially around the plant kingdoms. From your point of view, you talked a little bit earlier about this, the fact that the plants, and Clint brought this up, the fact that the plants basically are communicating with each other. One thing that happened down here, I've heard a few people talk about this. I'll ask you if you know this being. It's about plants, but it's all about something that sustains the plants, and that's the water. Have you ever been in contact with, or while he was alive, did you ever see Dr. Emoto?
Oh, certainly. I thought his books, I thought his work was wonderful. Absolutely life-changing. So many people.
He actually came to Melbourne, and a few of us got to do a seminar with him. And it was interesting because what we were asked to do was he got a water sample, and he asked us to do a meditation. And the water sample was frozen, and we got to see the crystal formation that was formed from the meditation that we did. And it was absolutely fascinating to see how the water, how the elements respond to the positive flow of energy and how they respond to the negative flow of energy. It was absolutely fascinating. But now in your work and research of late, especially in England, and the weather you had gotten some floods up in the north of England from what I remember before, a little earlier in the year, late last year. Yeah. I'm trying to just see, as far as nature is concerned and what's going on with the plant kingdom, with the waters, with air, earth, wind, and fire, for lack of a better term, in your place, in your home, what are you noticing from an energetic standpoint or from a meditative standpoint? When stuff like this happens, how does it affect these kingdoms? Is it just a natural change that is coming through, do you think, or is there something more to it?
Oh, no. I think that, for example, when you had the big floods in Queensland, these were forecasted in my book about 2012. But the animals, they knew this was happening. Some of them escaped, but many didn't. And they made a huge personal sacrifice of their ascension process in order to help humanity there learn the lessons of the flood. And so, of course, it's affecting them. It affects the trees. And the trees on the planet are feeling very spirited. They feel that humanity doesn't appreciate them and love them. And it makes a massive difference if you see a tree and you call in a higher frequency to go through it. I was once in the woods with a friend, and suddenly this fairy came up to me and said, I want to give you a message. Well, this friend was not somebody I talked to about these things. I said, wait a minute. And she said, no, now. So I said to my friend, excuse me, a fairy wants to give me a message. Bless her. She just said, okay. And the fairy wanted me to stop and bring the cosmic diamond violet flame down through a particular tree. And so I told my friend, stood together and we brought the violet flame down through the tree into the roots, watched it flowing out around the wood. And after that, every time I passed the tree, I did it, and I think the difference in the energy in that area of the wood was incredible. And I asked the fairy why it had to happen then, and she said, your friend needed it too, and so we wanted it to happen so that everybody could benefit at the same time. But now I bring the Christ light down through trees, I bring the golden violet, silver violet flame down, all sorts of other high-frequency energies like Padma, and the tree kingdom is benefiting from it enormously. This makes such a difference.
Beyond 3, D.
We are talking to Diana Cooper from England, and her website is www.dianacooper.com, and if you look at that website, you will find a myriad of information that will help you learn a lot about the energy of this world and what's going on here, the subtleties of what's going on in the world. And so Clint and I really appreciate Diana taking the time to speak with us. Now, Diana, there are a lot of books, as you said, you've written quite a number of books for children. There are many different exercises and meditations that you look at. If people go to the website, there's even a spot where you can actually pick one of the cards, the angel cards, and you have many different things like that going on. So what you're doing is, in my opinion, it's just a service that you're providing for people. Things that can help them get through their day, things that will allow them to be able to recognize the subtleties that are going on in the world, the things that really can make a difference in their life. And so that is to be more than commended. It's just a service that you're doing for humanity, and it's greatly appreciated. And so a friend of mine who's also a correspondent of the show couldn't be here this evening, but wanted to ask a couple of questions. And one of the questions she wanted to ask, being that you deal with spirit, being that you have spirit talk through you guys and have energy coming through you guys, she wanted to know, when a higher being comes to you, what can a person expect from that experience? Is the question.
You would normally expect to have a download of information that enables you to see things differently. You may receive their energy, their keys and codes into your aura, which light up some of the keys and codes you already have, and this opens you up to your gifts and talents. There are many, many different things that happen when a higher being touches you.
Another thing I would think is a lot of the higher beings, they have a lot of compassion, because some of the energies that they can bring down to this plane of existence can literally turn one to ash if you're not careful. So it's really interesting. That was her question. That was Heather's question, and I wanted to ask you that. But I think you're right. Depending on the being that is coming through, they understand when that energy comes through you. I would say the one thing is compassion, because. Well,
last year I went into Stonehenge with a group, and that is the retreat of Boothlu, who was the greatest high priest that ever came into Atlantis. Very, very high frequency, and of course Stonehenge itself is a seventh-dimensional portal. And when he came in and touched me, I literally felt just this incredible energy through me, and I know that I have seen things differently since.
So in a sense, what happened was energies came through you. Yes. It cleansed, in a sense, or got rid of things you no longer needed and allowed and opened up more of a subtle world for you, in a sense?
Absolutely. They changed your entire perspective on that.
Did it leave you with a feeling of peace or relief?
I would say yes, but anticipation as well.
Yeah. Cool.
You know, I feel excitement about life. We forget that life is the most extraordinary gift. That there are literally billions of spirits that would like to come here, and we're the ones that are here.
Good point. A very good point. Another question is, when you are talking to your guides, and I could basically get the answer to this, but this is for our guys out there. When a person, if you ask a question, what forms do the answers come as far as to you? They can come in many different forms, I would think, when you're asking spirit
Right.
for...
Some people are clairaudient, some people are telepathic.
I just really want to... Let's get down to the meat and potatoes of this in a sense. You have done a lot of work, and you have, in my opinion, you're connected with a lot of highly advanced spiritual beings. You help people on a daily basis. You get to interpret a lot of information. People come to you with with angst. People come to you with many different experiences, and they are looking for you to help them in some way, shape, or form. As this happens, as far as you're concerned, do you yourself, what do you do for yourself insofar as protection, insofar as shielding yourself? How do you make sure that you can give as much as you possibly can give, and also at the same time make sure that you are spiritually protected? Are there any
Well,
different...
I do call in protection sometimes, but mostly I'm very, very clear that this is their problem on their vibration, and that I tune in just to help them,
Right.
but I am not entering into that vibration.
That's fair enough. You see it for what it is.
Have you ever been drawn in?
Oh, gosh,
Yep.
many times,
Yep.
especially when I first started.
What?
And it's exhausting.
Yeah, exhausting. That was my next question.
That's
What's
a good
that
word.
experience? For people that aren't familiar, some of our listeners might not be familiar with what that experience would be like. And I wouldn't actually ask you to fully relive it, because even doing so would be exhausting in
It's
itself.
exhausting in itself.
But yeah, exhausting was an awesome answer, because that was what I was imagining.
Yes, I think that some people go from empathy into becoming that person's problem, and that takes it away. I had one really dreadful experience many, many years ago when I very first started, and this friend of mine was having an operation, and I was seeing a client. I used to do one-to-one in those days, seeing a client, and suddenly I had this most terrible pain, and I could hardly get through the rest of the session. When I came out of it, I realised that she had her cervical cancer operation at that moment. I'd taken off the pain,
Mm-hmm.
and that just took me on. You have to learn to have your energy to use and let somebody else have their energy for them. And at some level, I was corded to her and felt sorry for her, and that cord had just drawn in all her pain. But it was a big lesson for me.
No, I've been through similar in the different healing modalities that we've done. You learn that, in a sense, a person can tell you what is going on. You send the proper energies to them, bless it, and that's it. Then cut the cords, so to speak, and you just let it be, and just know that you're trying to get the work done as best you can, and you don't want to become the conduit for all of the angst and all of that kind of thing. So you
I don't think people realise how easy it is to cord yourself to somebody. Every single thought you send out at some level creates a cord.
Well, this is the thing, and you would know this if you, as far as seeing. A lot of times, what we can do, we're walking down the street, and you can pick up the different entities and the different energies around people, and a lot of it are thought forms, and they're not the person's thought forms. They're the thought forms. It could be a woman walking down the street, and she's beautifully dressed, and there are a bucket load of thought forms from every man she passes that are totally connected to her, and people wonder why they get drained. So what they literally have to do is they have to recognize that that is going on and find a way to cut all of those links.
Absolutely.
And
well,
that's-
yes, they have to be open to the energy for the beings. And if they are, if their aura is totally clear and contained around them, then those thoughts can't get through.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So
so even just learning to stroke your own aura so that there are no holes in it is a really good thing to do. And it's a very good thing to do for children when they come home from school.
cleanse them. Yep.
Cleanse them
Yeah.
of what they've picked up during the day. So that
Absolutely.
they can come into your home, be
Absolutely.
themselves.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. So now,
The
Diana,
children these days are so much more sensitive.
they're more sensitive than even they realize.
Yes, absolutely.
And literally, I just notice it because we're around them. If you give them the opportunity, they are just so open, and the energies can just flow through them. And it's just a shame that we watch them go to school and watch all the different layers and blocks that society can put up on them, and all of a sudden a lot of the things just go by the boards. And you just go, oh, come on.
That's absolutely true.
Oh, drives you nuts.
It is the same.
It drives you nuts. But anyway, Diana, I wanted to thank you for taking this time and spending this time with us. Again, your website is www.dianacooper.com. Guys, you will get a myriad of information from this website, fantastic information that can truly help you in life. And it starts, take the first step, take a look at Diana's website and get some really good information. We'll also put it up on the Beyond 3D Facebook page and on the RPPFM website as well, so you guys out there can get all the information you need. Just get on the site and do your card for the day. Pick a card from the cards that are up there, and it'll give you a saying that you can take through the day with you and allow yourself to hopefully have a better day than normal out there as we go about our work days and things like that. So Diana, once again, Clint and I would love to thank you for coming on here and spending some time with us. What is going forward for you now in 2016? What is on your calendar? What are you doing? Dates insofar as seminars, talks, and things along those lines?
Yeah, well, they're all up on my website.
Mm-hmm.
I am coming to Australia, but it may be postponed to November this year, next year. And I'm really looking forward to that because I love Australia. Some of the best times of my life were there.
Mm.
And I'm so looking forward to coming back.
Well,
I'm feeling the energy of Australia.
Yeah, well,
It's quite unique.
If you can get down to the Mornington Peninsula, we come to our RPP studios, you're welcome here. There are a lot of people here that are doing really great spiritual work, and it would be an absolute treat to be able to spend some time with you as well. So, folks,
thank you.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. So, folks, from Clint and myself, thank you. And Diana, have a great day over there, in spite of the fact that it's cloudy and rainy.
Take the dog to the forest.
Get the dog out, get him out.
Yeah.
It could be cloudy and rainy here
Okay.
tomorrow.
Nice talking to you. Bye-bye then.
Take care now.
Good night, Diana.
Bye.
Beyond 3 D.
Last week we had Tricia Robertson, and this week it's Diana Cooper, and it's really opened some amazing doors over the last couple of days in my life, Matt, just being subjected to all this.
Well, perfectly honest with you, Clint, I agree with you 100% because this is what's happening in the world right now. A lot of people are getting into the different esoteric energies, and that's a great thing.
I had an experience during the week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to bring it up today because we're totally out of time.
Mm-hmm.
You touch base with me next week.
Will do.
And I'll dial this story up and I'll share it with you. But have to send a shout out tonight to Michelle Abrams up there in Brisbane. She comments on our show on Facebook page every week, and Michelle, we absolutely appreciate your input.
Without a doubt, it's great to be able to hear from somebody like that. Yeah.
Awesome. Next week, Matt?
Next week?
I think next week. How about we just sit down and chat?
That's a good idea.
Cool.
A little bit of a shoot the breeze and see what's going on in the world. Until then, folks, take good care of yourselves, and we will catch you for another edition of Beyond 3D.
Just because you haven't experienced it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.